end of second part, and it's up to you if there will be, perhaps I suggest we skip the third part, and perhaps we can enter in a discussion if you have questions.
Thank you so much, Claudia. So before, maybe there are questions or remarks or comments.
What was the third part?
The third part, I thought about to make the things perhaps more concrete about an actual working process, but now I thought it's not necessary.
Well, it's maybe not necessary, but at the same time, when I look at the first and the second part and see how different the register is, the way you would approach this question of method, of this method body, which you say doesn't belong to you, you say it's a method body in danger. And I think, like, maybe you can say a little bit, because I think the fact that you choose different media and different formats to actually develop your work and unfold it and question it again and again, like in this current project that you're about to start, maybe this makes it concrete also. Like with the installation upcoming and how you...
in fact, perhaps when I suggested the thematic of a method body, first I thought I would define it much more on concrete working process, but then in the reflection about it, it became really a process of itself. But on the same way, it's quite connected with an actual necessary? Nee.
Yes, for documentation.
Yes? Kann man das Licht vielleicht ein bisschen ändern?
Ja.
So, mehr so für alle. Okay. In fact, what I found really interesting when you research on a particular topic, because I think there are always two methods. You know from the beginning what you will get out of a material, or there's, because of a hazard, a material appears in front of you. And then I think it's a really interesting question how to organize and how to deal with this material. In this case, it started 2011 we had a residency in New York, and we had to do something with the community around. And I was like, oh no, not again, these community works. And so we started to do scripted interviews with the community. And there was the time when we did these interviews that there were the political changes in Tunisia and in Egypt. And the interviews were with questions about their own identity, definitions of democracy, ideas about state terrorism and revolution. And it was quite amazing how the actual changes become a monstrous projection project of the good unbloody revolutions which happens which then made us decide we absolutely have to go to Cairo and Alexandria and try to talk with the people, because suddenly the question appeared, in fact, how history is produced and how a historical event then afterwards is filtered via historical context. So often there's one narration which is left at the end, and it was completely clear on one hand the projections, and on the other hand the facts were so complex that from this it started to create something like an archive of multi-narrative. So there was a clear subject of the political changes, and we interviewed people out from different backgrounds who were activists or just witnesses of the events, or had nothing to do with it at all, and try to understand how the political change was developed and what it really provoked in this moment. We went there in October 2011. From this on, it continues that this kind of encounter, having particular questions towards people and to understand if you have a camera and you have an audio instrument, how this framing creates, I would say, a gift of attention, and how this gift of attention creates a really particular situation of concentration. And we always denied to give the questions to people before. So it was always, in a city were always the same questions, and it was always about having this encounter and to give time to reflect on particular topics. So the story after this Egyptian interviews, it continued. Suddenly this tool of interviews became a really important tool to understand. And it was really interesting to interview people which you not even know before. But it was a really intimate way of encounter, always when the people accepted it, and it created a particular way of, I would say, collecting narrations, and then it's no narration is the truth, or they are all the truth, but how it's possible to then deal with this growing archive of different narration being produced in different geopolitical contexts. So we went further, we went to Zagreb, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, etc., etc. And then it's the question, okay, how you can deal with this material, for what you're collecting it, what is the reason of it, what you can do with it. And in this particular moment, I'm trying to develop an installation, because the idea was 2011 was a year where you didn't know what is going on. There were so many events happening around you, so revolutions, nature catastrophes, etc., etc. And then was the question, how you can, what are the results of the catastrophes on one hand, and on the other hand, how it's possible to organize this material being developed in this time. And so we are now in a starting point of a new project with the title Catastrophes 1115, and the other title is Ideal Paradise, trying to understand what the catastrophe has as a function in society, and what it evokes on the orders or on the way of ideas, how a society should be organized, and what are the ways of organization when a catastrophe makes an order of a society breaking down. So in this kind of vague field, now the first step to develop this project is to create an installation, because a bit following perhaps this little lecture, to put, trying to make material in front of you and not just try to conceptualize it completely, but trying to learn on the material what it is and what it could be. And so I decided I would like, as a first approach towards this new performance project, to making the first approach via an installation, which is a really different way as to making a conception about performative usability, and which again opens up an immense vast landscape of options and makes the things not more usable, but much more complex and much more interesting in a way.
Claudia, can you say a little bit about your table
Yes.
here, which consists of 49 drums?
Yes.
In the center is voice, and one thing you are hiding in the foreground. And it
I
says
forgot it. I wanted to put it
no,
here
but
when I
it's
started.
very nice. It says response, ability, answer, and the ability to answer, so to say, and responsibility, so to say, as a word can. Yeah.
In fact, searching for, I think for me it's a really, interesting thing to understand what are the main differentiations of the work you do and how you can approach towards it. And according to a workshop I was given in Brussels, I remembered the text I was reading of Dan Graham about cinema and theater, and in this text there was a little detail about a Renaissance theater called Theater of Memory, which was a construction of a conceptual theater which was done only for one spectator. And then I tried to understand what was this conception of this theater of memory, And so it was organized with 7 pillars of wisdom. And it was a conceptual place, like it had 7 staircases and 7 couloirs like this. So there were in fact 49 elements in this theater of memory. And then I started to suggest, to say, okay, we now built this theater of memory and fill it with our methodology. So every one of the participants was asked to first to create 7 most important topics, how they form or how they develop their work, and then putting under the 7 main topics other 6 topics. And then, like this was where this 49 topics created. And it was really interesting. Now it's only flat, but and I changed it over the time several times. But suddenly it stayed a kind of a construction where I could rely on, and I can say, no, this term I put it away, and I can change it, and I can always try to re-understand a constellation of elements, which is really interesting if you put it in this original space structure. So it's really like we built it together. Fleur is here, she was also part of this work. And we built it, and it was really different if you have this construction of topics which are talking back to yourself flat, or if it suddenly put it in a space. Because when you're standing in the space, it was suddenly like they created different relations and talk to yourself, and it was really interesting then, in this way, how you place this kind of different terms, how through the terms suddenly you can create a narration about your methodology. So this is related, and it stays for me quite consistent in this thinking about how it's possible to develop, or how it's possible to talk about something like a methodology, and even not becoming super detailed, but in the same time to becoming clear, which is quite a difficult topic, I think.
Is there other questions?
Hopefully.
How do you imagine that over maybe the next 2 years, or maybe over the last 2 years, how does this constellation of differentiations of concepts, how will it change? What will give the, I mean, I know it's probably at the center of all your questions that you are proposing, but if 2 of them would fuse, or if one would be dropped, sure. Or if what, but how can there be agency there, or what is the incentive?
I would say the agency is, I find it interesting, it's like a memory. It's like a kind of memory of a particular moment where you created these differentiations, and then for sure every time you look at it, you change the meaning on the same topics. So the topics never have the same consistency on one hand, but it stays, what I tried also to make clear before, but it becomes something which is not just in your brain turning around and you have to make chronological phrases, but it's a simultaneous system of aspects. And I think how you navigate through this and how you make or how you create different connections, already it changes every moment. So it's like it answers you or it questions you again, and I think it's really an interesting partner in developing a method. And then really perhaps there's a moment they say, okay, this topic has nothing to do anymore. But even with the same topics, it will always change, because how you read them and what you combine. If I go in a diagonal structure, or I go in a flat structure, or I only put the first 7 topics or the last topics, or I make a cross order. So it's all about this kind of reorganization and how these aspects shift and change.
Yeah, I guess that's maybe also the moment to invite you very warmly to Claudia's installation, which is opening next week on Wednesday in former customers' canteen, if that's the right, Zollams Kantine, basically. here in Vienna, and it's running from Wednesday to Saturday with 2 performative acts on Wednesday and Saturday at 8:30. And we really hope to see you all back. And thank you very much, Claudia. And here at 7:30, it's Ziad Abu Rish with the next lecture.
Ich muss jetzt alles wegräumen.